Let's finish up the monopoly chapter, chapter 12, looking at the economic effects of a monopoly. They may be inefficient, which means they are producing at a cost higher than necessary. After all, they don't have any competition. And they may be rent seeking, but a lot of businesses rent seek. It doesn't necessarily have to be a monopoly. That just means asking for favors that are not available to everyone, like trade restrictions or certain tax breaks or something like that. So X inefficiency is graphed here looking at an average total cost curve, which continues to go down, which is more typical for a monopoly. They may be producing at quantity one at a higher price because they don't have to necessarily produce at low cost, and that's an X inefficiency. So what can be done about a monopoly? Antitrust, break up the firm. Chapter 21 covers antitrust laws, Sherman Act, Clayton Act. Standard Oil, of course, was broken up into competing firms in the early 1900s. Microsoft was not ordered to break into competing firms, but they did pay huge fines. We have to remember also that antitrust legislation is very expensive. It costs taxpayers many millions of dollars, as well as the company. Frequently, the problem is not even a problem by the time the courts make a decision on the case. Regulated government determines price and quantity. This would be in the case of utilities. They are regulated by public service commissions, PSCs, and each state has its own public service commission, and the governor of the states appoint members to serve on that committee. When the utilities need to raise rates, if they've seen increases in cost or decreases in demand, then they have to go to the PSC and have hearings, public hearings, where the public can go. And it takes many weeks, maybe months sometimes, for a determination to be made. Or just ignore it, let time and markets get rid of it. And frequently that does happen. Back when in the 1969, early 70s, IBM was sued under antitrust. And it took a while, but IBM had a lot of competition. It has a lot of competition today. It just took a while, and the problem basically went away after spending millions and millions of dollars. So monopoly power allows a business to price discriminate. We've talked a little about this before. Price discrimination is charging different buyers different prices, but the important thing to remember is they are charging prices based on elasticities of demand, not based on cost differences. So you have to have some monopoly power to price discriminate and be able to segregate the market and not be able to resell, like a adult cannot get into a movie with a child's ticket, for example. Examples of price discrimination: business travelers have a more inelastic demand, generally pay more for air travel. Electric utilities may charge businesses more per kilowatt hour than a homeowner. Movie theaters charge different prices based on age. So that is a form of price discrimination. It's perfectly legal as long as it doesn't lessen competition. Railroad companies charge less for bulk items and more for items that can't really be shipped in bulk or that are more valuable. Couponing, this sounds almost silly, but those who are willing to seek out coupons, clip coupons, if you will, have a more elastic demand. They're not willing to pay as high of a price. So let's look at an example of a graphic example of this. Let's say that this is Microsoft Office, and small businesses need it as well as students. And the small business has a more inelastic demand curve. They have to have those tools. They need Excel, they need Word, and maybe PowerPoint, etc. So they're willing to pay a higher price. We're just making the assumption here in the red line that marginal cost is the same as average total cost, which at some point it is. But the price, of course, is the charge on the demand curve. A student has a much more elastic demand curve, a flatter curve. and they're not charged as high a price. But that's perfectly legal to do that as long as it doesn't lessen competition. So what about the regulated monopoly? These are the monopolies that are regulated by public service commissions. Natural monopolies like utilities, they may be forced by the Public Service Commission to charge only a price equal to marginal cost. Well, this could present a problem because that price could be below average total cost and they'd be losing money. Nobody can be forced to stay in business and lose money for a long period of time. So more than likely, the Public Service Commission will allow the fair return price, which is price equal to average total cost. Let's look at what that looks like graphically, and this is very important for test questions. The unregulated monopoly will produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost and charge the highest price. The regulated monopoly, if they are forced to charge that socially optimal price, that would be the most efficient. They'd have to produce more, and it would be allocatively efficient, meaning the customers would have all they want at that price. But if that is below average total cost, then there would be losses. So more than likely, they will be allowed the fair return price, where price is equal to average total cost. So socially optimal price is at marginal cost, fair return is at average total cost. So just recapping, this would be another example of price discrimination, where big data is, of course, available to a lot of internet sellers, and they may be able to set a price according to a consumer's perceived ability to pay or their elasticity of demand using algorithms, basing it on your online buying habits, backgrounds, preferences, and still charge a low price to those with an elastic demand and a higher price for those with inelastic demand. Of course, this would be negated when people comparison shop, which I suppose we should all do when we're buying something online. That does raise some ethical questions, but we really don't have laws in place to deal with those at this time.